these are also markets that, we're watching technology adoption skyrocket in those countries, and yet they're still 100% dependent on external search. It's just part of the culture, and they look at these campaigns as expensive, yet they're not looking at it from a holistic standpoint of shifting money to what's most effective or where they're getting the best ROI.
Right. Hey, look, just to sum up this part of the conversation, what are the three things that, for instance, in New Zealand, a lot of companies here are less than 20 employees. So just to sum up, what are the three must-do pieces of advice for their HR people? Obviously, would I be right in starting off, number one would be looking at investing in time to do an employer value proposition?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think understanding what differentiates your organization from an employer standpoint, what is the compelling reason that people work there, and making sure that transcends into everything you're doing internally and everything you're conveying externally, making sure it's authentic and it aligns and it's compelling is one of the single most important things they should be doing. And that transcends a lot of things. That's number one. Number two is you need to understand how your candidates are consuming media. Don't get caught up in the hype. You're going to get 1,000 calls from 1 million different vendors pitching their products. And I think once you understand how your candidates, where your candidates are going, who your candidates are, what your candidates' behaviors are, and I mean we could spend an hour talking about that, but you need to understand it because that's going to allow you to invest correctly. And the third piece is, I would say, measure, and invest and divest quickly based on that measurement. It's no longer the age of, when this online advertising, a lot of people don't get it yet, but it was the same shift when companies took forever to move their spending from print advertising to job boards. There were companies that lagged so far behind and wasted so much money because they couldn't shift at the right moment. So measuring is important.
Hey, look, just to move on to the second part of the conversation, what do you think, what new trends are you seeing emerging in the US and Europe? For instance, let me start you off. The New York Times a few weeks ago had an article that said the internet remembers everything. And the start of the story was about a young teacher who, on her Facebook, had a picture of her slightly drunk at a party, and the upshot of it was that she didn't get the job because a HR department, where she was applying for a job, went and did a big search of her life, saw her in this position, and decided not to hire her. Is that valid in the States, or is that a problem? Do you see it or not?
Well, I think it depends. I think it depends on the angle you're looking at it from. I mean, I think as a candidate, you should always be on guard. I mean, as anybody in society, you should be on guard in terms of what you put on the internet. I mean, New York Times is exactly right. It does last forever. I mean, you could pull something down, but it's already cached on 2,000 servers out there, and you pull something off, a local server and still out there, So I think that's I think that is a reality. Now, whether it's legal or not for a company to do it, I think people are people, and you never know when someone's going to go do a Google search or use something like PIPL.com and scrape your whole sort of social profile across the web and see what's out there. I would say in more developed countries that there was a lot of hype around that. I would say 2 to 3 years ago maybe, where there was so much media around not putting stuff out there that employers can see, and it seems like that's calmed down a little bit. I think now we're seeing more trends instead of kind of scraping, what people did at their bachelor party to more advanced online assessments.
Right.
So I think, I think companies sort of had moved away. You had sort of like old school, basically in the 50s where, a lot of companies, deployed psychological assessments and different types of intense, interviewing techniques. And then I think when the war for talent kicked off, we sort of moved away from this, and it was all about, minimizing sort of the friction to get people in the door. And I think, we got a little bit lazy with assessment, and now I think this has sort of gone through another evolution again where we've developed a lot of online assessments that are getting a lot smarter. And I think that's what business leaders are talking more about today. One of the things I got a little bit sidetracked earlier when I was talking about that shift from the war for talent, but when the market dropped out, that argument for saying, hey, we want to go external, or there's this war for talent, we need funding, it shifted because now companies were doing more with less. They were streamlining processes. I mean, you got Six Sigma, you got Lean. Companies, were getting more productivity out of less people, and that's become the focus during these last, 2 years, I would say. The thing that keeps CEOs up at night when it comes to people is, are they engaged? Because we have less of them, so are we getting the most out of them? Are they speaking positively about the organization? Do they want to stay with the organization? And then because you're bringing fewer people in, and there's more of a demand for roles than there was talent for a little while, I think companies started thinking about, look, every hire is even more important now. So we need to deploy smarter tactics for weeding through the massive amounts of talent that are out there. And I was telling you at the beginning of I think before we started the show, Mike, there's been, I think even another evolution now where we're not fully out of that yet, but now there's like this, there's a bit of I would say an undercurrent heating back up, and the competition is starting to heat back up as the market starts to turn. And so I think the war for talent now has become much more targeted. So companies aren't saying, hey, let's invest in, putting millions into every sort of, every role we're hiring for, but for key roles, let's get much smarter about how we target talent and how we assess talent. And then once they're in, how do we engage them? And I think that's where we are today. So again, like some of the more hypey stuff out there, I haven't heard a lot of buzz, around like, finding the person at the bachelorette party that's, I don't know, flashing the neighbors or something, but.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, look, just in the last 10 minutes, and hopefully the technology we've got can allow this, because you're in Germany, I'm in Auckland, our producer is in Malaysia, but if you'd like to call in or text Frog and ask questions of Steve, he's happy to answer. So just in the last 10 minutes, just winding down, and if you're on the line and I've answered the phone, please yell out if you're there. Just the last 10 minutes, Steve, it sounds as if you yourself are doing a wonderful job branding yourself. You've really enveloped new media. You've got a blog called Impossibles, Recruiting Revolution. How many hours a day or how many hours a week does that take up of your time? And what's your ethos behind this?
I would say that in terms of the amount of time it eats up during the day, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I would say right now that's shifted a little bit, and I'm spending much more time interacting with the business right now and really looking at how we deploy this stuff in the right way. And we have members of the team now that are actually getting out there. Like we started Adidas Group Jobs on Twitter.com, and we have a social media guru on our team that, she lives to be online in this space. And, I think it's, I guess my ethos around it is what I find just, I would say, very, very interesting about blogs and micro blogging